Sisters, welcome to Rock Talk. We're extremely excited to have you on the show today because we get multiple experiences and we get three of you. So, like they say, three's better than one. So we're happy to have all three of you here to share experiences. For those viewers that don't know, these are, yes, they are the Carriere Sisters, as some people know them in Hamilton. But they also are first cousins as well, too. So mothers are sisters. So really happy to have you on the show. Thanks again for taking the time to join us. And we're going to jump into a lot of conversation today that I think will be transferable to a lot of the viewers watching. So thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, so why don't we just jump right into it? Why don't we go through and just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and kind of your experience, both playing, coaching, and kind of where you are now in life.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll start. My name's Katelyn, the youngest of the sisters. I started playing basketball in grade 4-ish, I think. Grew up playing with the London Ramblers. Had a great experience all throughout elementary school, high school with that. Played at John Paul, made a couple OFSA appearances. Then moved on to NCAA Division II school, Saginaw Valley State, where I had 2 NCAA appearances. Right now, I'm still in school at Fanshawe in the respiratory therapy program. I'm also helping out with athletics and just really focusing on school right now.
All right, I'm Danielle, the second oldest or middle sister. Like Katelyn, I started in elementary school at grade 4, played elementary school and played with Ramblers, went to John Paul II High School, where I went to OFSA, I think 4 times maybe, and then continued on to Saginaw Valley State as well. Graduated from there after 4 years of playing with 1 NCAA tournament appearance. Went to Western for Teachers College, where I coached with the basketball team there for 1 year as an associate, and then made the jump over to Fanshawe with the rest of my family for 3 years now. And I'm a teacher here in London and hoping to continue my coaching career as I continue teaching.
I'm Nicole, the oldest of the sisters. I grew up playing competitive soccer. I only played basketball in high school, where I was able to go to OFSA a couple times as well. After I graduated high school, I decided to stay home. I went to Fanshawe College and played both varsity soccer and basketball there. After I graduated, I was lucky enough to get a job right out of graduation with the athletic department at Fanshawe, where I still work now as a sports information officer. When I graduated, I started helping out with the women's varsity basketball team as an assistant coach, and I have now been the assistant coach for 7 years now.
That's great. So we're going to touch on your coaching careers because, I mean, it's kind of a cool story with the Fanshawe women's basketball program and the family ties there. But let's keep it in terms of your athletic career. You all had different experiences. Danielle, Katelyn, you played at NCAA school in the States. Nicole is a dual sport athlete in Canada. Would talk a little bit about your experiences, some positives of going to the States, and Nicole, positives and negatives of staying in Canada. I mean, there's obviously both positives for both, so and negatives for both. So, I mean, Danielle and Katelyn, kind of touch on your experience in the States, and then Nicole followed up by a little bit about your Canadian experience.
Okay, I'll start with a positive about going away. Something that I think both Katelyn and I really considered and contributed to our decision of going away was the fact that we would be seeing different people. So we had been growing up in the same leagues, playing against the same players for years and years, and it really intrigued us that we could go see different people and try out a different style of play and different environments and things like that. So that was one of our the big factors in our decision making in going away to Saginaw, Michigan to play, is that we wouldn't be playing against the same people. We'd have the opportunity to see new athletes, see new coaches, new facilities and things like that. So that was a big positive for us. It was a great experience to kind of just start fresh a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's great playing against the same people for a while. Like understanding their game a little better. And of course, you see new people once you do get to university in Canada, but I think we wanted some fresh blood. So obviously we got that in the States. Also, like, as a kid, you dream of going to the NCAA tournament. Like, if you're a basketball player growing up, you're watching the games, you're seeing March Madness. Like, it's all super exciting. So obviously that played a part a little bit as well. I think one thing that I wouldn't do differently, because my time in Saginaw was amazing, like, would not trade it for the world. But something to think about is just the opportunities you get after you graduate. Mike, me and you had this conversation when we were in high school, where at the time, if you wanted to go play professionally somewhere, going to the States would be your number one option. But if you wanted to come out of college and have an opportunity for a career or a job opportunity, staying in Canada would probably be your better bet, because you develop those connections, you can network, and you can have those opportunities coming right out of graduation, like it was for Nicole and for you guys. I didn't have that really. Like, I came back after graduating and I'm like, okay, now what? And now I'm back in school. So that's just something to think about for those athletes who are making that decision. It's tough because you got to find what's right for you, but that's just a different take on it.
No, that makes sense. I think we align in that as well too, where we talk about it with a lot of our athletes, where you've worked so hard throughout your whole life. You're now 17 years old, 18 years old, making a decision that could shape the rest of your life or play a big role in shaping the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And at that stage, you want what you feel is glamorous and what you think is what you deserve and what you worked hard for, and to get those experiences. And you look at the stands in NCAA games and you look at the stands in Canada, and the sport culture is just completely different in America. And, like you said, you wouldn't trade it, because that experience you had was incredible. We could imagine. So I think like you said, just making sure you have some type of plan or some type of direction on kind of the next step. Like, what are your short-term, what are your long-term goals? And then making sure you're doing the right actions to achieve those things. And if you can keep that in mind, then I think you'll be in a good spot, like you girls have done. So yeah, no, that's a good point and really good insight.
There's so much to think about as a young athlete when you're making that decision, and it's not easy. For me, at the time of my life, it was the best decision to stay close to home. I, at first, was obviously hoping I could maybe get a scholarship when I was growing up playing soccer. A lot of my teammates did. But one thing you have to think about when going down south is percentage of scholarship, how far you're going. Sometimes that scholarship that's only 50%, you're going to end up paying 3 times as much going to the States than staying in Canada. That might not be a factor for some people, but it is something you have to consider with international fees. For me, staying in Canada was the right decision. I wanted to be close to home. So if you are the kind of person that might get homesick, maybe that's a better option for you. Whatever the case may be, you want to have a good experience. And something as simple as how much you want to play might be a factor. For these two, for example, both of them got D1 offers, but they decided to go D2 where they knew they were going to play right away. Both as freshmen, they were on the floor. If that's something that's important to you, even between college and university in Canada, do you want to see minutes right away, or are you willing to take your time? And that's fine. Both options are great. There's so many different positives and negatives to both, but whatever you decide, you got to buy in. If you're gonna do it, you got to be like, okay, I'm staying home. I'm going to Fanshawe and I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna do the best I can here. And yeah, some people might have said, oh, you should have went to the States or you should have went to university. But this is my choice, so I'm gonna make the best of it and not regret it.
Sometimes people go over to the States and they think it's, oh, I got a D1 scholarship, and then you get there and the coaching staff doesn't have your best interest. Like there's your best interest isn't in mind, and that's just reality. And that could happen in Canada. You need to find a fit that you go there and you feel comfortable with the coaching staff, you feel comfortable with your teammates, you've met some of them, and you understand that this is where I'm going to be for 4 years or 5 years, and you got to know that the people around you have your back just as much as you have theirs, or else it's going to be a downhill slope from the beginning.
So how about this then? Like, we talk about it being a big decision, obviously. How do, like, you're both in recruiting, you're both in recruiting, and you've all been recruited. So what are some of the questions that you should be asking, or not even questions, because people can tell you anything that they feel like you need to hear. What are some of the things you should be looking for that will help determine, where is the right step for me?
Can I start? Because I don't really do much recruiting. I'm not a coach. But to learn from what I've been through, don't make your focus athletics. Like, as hard as it is, because that's really the reason you're there. Like, I wouldn't be in Saginaw if I didn't play basketball. Like, no. But you need to think, like you said, Mike, think long term, because even if you do go pro, it's not going to be forever. And you got to think what's going to happen after that. So you need to find the program as far as education that fits best for you, because in the end, that's what you're going to have. That's my take.
Do you think, Katelyn, do you think that there's still athletes that are blinded by that, or making decisions?
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm not around a whole lot of young athletes, but I mean, it's hard. Like you said, it's the glamour, it's the culture that America provides towards its athletics. It's so athletics focused that you're getting all this special treatment, and it's hard as a young kid not to pass that up. And even in Canada, it's this whole college versus university thing. Like, I feel like it's gotten better over the years, but when I was younger, it was always like, you have to go university. Like, there's no college for you. Like, that's not the route to go. But the basketball is fantastic, and you're able to get hands-on experience in school and get jobs right out of it. Like, I'm back at Fanshawe College. I have a degree and could do nothing with it, and I'm back at Fanshawe. So it's definitely something that young kids need to consider, and it's not something to take lightly, I guess.
It's all a stigma. It's all like, it's this college is worse stigma, and it's just like, oh, the NCAA is better than Canadian university stigma. It's like, why is it better? There's teams
right.
that
or
are,
even
yeah, go ahead.
Or even D1 versus D2 versus D3. Like, we played D2, but we scrimmaged plenty of D1 schools and we beat them.
Yeah.
So it's you can't like
no, you're
like,
putting them all in.
You
put them all in the same basket.
Yeah,
what's the point?
exactly.
Like, there were teams that Mike and I played, and you guys played in university. Like, we're slapping university teams, and it could go both ways, right? Like, it's all like, there's all different situations, and people should stop looking at it in this like vacuum almost.
Right.
So I'm going to touch on that too a little bit in a different way. Aside from the athletics, just the atmosphere and the environment. When we went to Saginaw to visit, the campus was beautiful. The school was small. It wasn't a very big school. And one of the things that the coaches mentioned were class sizes. They talked about the programs that we wanted to be in and how our class sizes would be comparable to almost out of a high school class. And having that connection with the faculty in those small classes was something very important for myself, probably Katelyn as well. And just being in that environment that's a little bit more, you kind of have a better connection because it's not as big. Even when I went to Western for Teachers College, Teachers College was kind of on the outskirts of campus, but when I went into main campus, I almost felt overwhelmed just by the size and the amount of things happening there. And you kind of don't feel part of a community. So for me, it was the environment at Saginaw. It was a small, close-knit community where, I mean, we knew everybody in athletics. So on any type of team, the soccer team, the football team, the softball team, and the size of the school really helped better our experience. Well, mine anyways.
I agree with that, Danielle. Like, I think that, like, with my experience at Windsor, it was a smaller university compared to most. But I think that, like, what I learned early on after my first set of midterms, where I think I only passed one of them, is that there has to be a smarter way to succeed. And that smarter way was build better relationships with students and faculty. And there was times where I just willed my way through a class. I don't think I was any smarter after first year than I was in second or third. I think I just willed my way through some of them by, I did bad on this assignment. All right, time to go see the TA and say, hey, what did I do wrong here, and how can I improve? You ask that question to any teacher, any coach, how can I improve? Right away, the next time they see your name on an assignment, they're going to be more inclined to helping you be better. And sometimes marks are subjective. So there's ways to sometimes will your way through assignments and get better marks. But I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Anything for you to add there, Nicole, or do you want to move on here to the next question, Joe?
I would tie in with what they're saying. There's a big adjustment coming from high school to whatever post-secondary you're going to go to. And I guess your original question was, when you're recruiting, what kind of questions you should ask. They should be asking about the on-campus resources for academics or mental health or whatever they think would make their path easier. They should be asking their coaches about that. And if their coaches don't know, then they should probably be thinking, what's this coach's priority? Because if their priority isn't the well-being of their athletes, that's probably not the school for you. That would be the last thing I have to add.
100%.
And I think a lot of people probably don't ask those tough questions that you're going to learn more from the coach's response, right? Like how they respond to it than them telling you, oh, we have a great team culture. Because you can fake a culture for one weekend, recruiting visit weekend.
Yeah.
You can't fake a culture for a full year or for a full semester, because you'll learn fast what the culture looks like. And that's just using culture as an example. But that's a great point, Nicole. We're asking questions to see what does their response look like to help shape your decision of what that team and what that school looks like.
And how consistent is it too? Like, you can ask a bunch of people. You can go to a number of different people and ask the same exact questions and see what the consistency in these answers are. If it's all over the map, then you know it's fake. It's fluff. If they're consistent and they're like, okay, coach does this or the academic staff does this and it's all consistent, then you know that you're on the right track. But if it's all over the place, then you might have to take another look, a closer look.
Talk about a point in your career, both playing or coaching, that really challenged you, and there's a big obstacle and you had to kind of overcome it.
I'll go first. My obstacle was mostly mental. In my senior year, after playing for 3 years, being seen as a leader in university with my team, I didn't start many games. The only game I started was senior night. And so for me, that was something that I kind of had to adjust to coming off the bench, because being a starter is something that, I mean, all athletes will pride themselves on. And so initially, when over and over again, you know, it was starting 5 without my name in it, and it kind of took a toll on my mental game for a little bit, in that thinking I wasn't worthy of my playing time and all this stuff. And I'd worked so hard over the years to get to where I am today. It was my last year of university. So that was kind of a challenge for me, but I was able to, after talking with family and some of the coaching staff, I was able to take on that role. And like Nicole mentioned earlier, just taking pride in owning that. So I was really using my sixth man role as motivation, you know, to keep working hard and maybe earn that starting spot eventually. But I was also kind of settling into that and being that spark that comes off the bench. Something that some of you may have heard before is it's not who starts the game, it's about who finishes the game. That kind of also was my motivation. So maybe I didn't start that game, but I was on the floor when the game ended. So I knew that my coaches trusted me to be in that position when it was coming down the stretch. So I kind of just had to change my mentality. Instead of focusing on whether or not I started, I was focusing on what I could do to help the team when I was on the floor, and just continuing to be a supporter for my teammates who were starting. So being that energy on the bench until it was my time to go in. So that's something that I think built my character and helped me be successful in my final year.
I think that's kind of a testament to kind of how you were raised and how we were raised right up from, our grandfather, our grandmother down, is that, look, life's going to throw shit at you. And sometimes things are going to be different, and you got to find a way to adjust where, we've played with so many athletes that would throw a fit because they're not starting. And, it doesn't help. It doesn't change anything. Like, you have to find a way to, go around it or go through it, and finding a positive within the negative, right, is what you did. And I think that is what's going to help shape people and you for the future. Like, no matter what hits you, you'll know how to pivot and you'll know how to get through it, instead of kind of throwing the arms up saying, I should be starting, and consuming your energy with that.
And I think to kind of add to Danielle's scenario, when she says that she kind of like played her role well and bought in, doesn't mean that she was complacent. Like, she wasn't like, okay, I'm not going to be starting, so like this is just how it's going to be. She worked her butt off every single practice, getting extra reps up, always talking. So just because you're in a role on a team doesn't mean that you necessarily will be there to stay. So you always have to be prepared. You always got to work like you're striving for that top spot, even though like you don't know what's going to happen. So even if you are that sixth man, you got to be, even if you're 15th, you better be ready for when that opportunity comes where a coach calls on you.
Another thing is too, and we can lead into Nicole here, but do you think that the coach's decision to have Danielle come off the bench in her senior year served more than one purpose?
Yes.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I ask that because, through our experiences, I watched coaches make decisions that there was so many reasons why that decision was being made, whether you realize that now, today, or it was come playoff time, or, 2 years down the road, maybe the coach was sending a message to a second year on the team who was starting and saying, hey, this could be you. Like, you could have to find this role, and you now need to learn from Danielle, because if this is you, I need you to be mentally strong enough and prepared to accept that role. So do you think that there's multiple purposes, and how often in your coaching do you make decisions that serve more than one purpose?
Yeah, so I'll touch briefly on that, and just add to my story in that there were 2 freshmen that started over me. So initially, that stings a little bit. These girls just got here. I've been here working my butt off for 3 years, and now they're getting my playing time. But absolutely, them starting builds their confidence. Them starting or them playing with the other starters, maybe that builds chemistry that I've already built with the other 3 starters I've been playing with since I got here. So I completely understand that there are definitely other factors that play into that decision. And I like to maybe give myself a pat on the back and say that my coaches trusted me with this role. And if it were somebody else, one of the other starters, maybe they wouldn't have had that same reaction.
Yeah, I see that I've seen that so many times where it's like you can risk taking that person off the bench because they're gonna have to deal with less. If they didn't start somebody else, they're gonna have to deal with situations that they just don't have time for. and emotion that they don't have time for. And I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but I'm saying that I've seen it, and I've seen it recently, and it's not the way to do it, but that's the way it is. And I mean, you just have to kind of go with what your role is and kind of do it the best you can. But I'd like to hear from Nicole in terms of if she's seen that type of stuff, or you in your coaching career thus far, and how you kind of handle it.
I don't think we've had the exact same situation as Danielle, because at Fanshawe, we rarely have the same 5 starters. It's something that we keep fluid for a couple of reasons. Making sure that people don't get complacent, making sure that people understand that every week they can work for their spot. Obviously, there's those people that stay on top. It's just natural. But in different scenarios, whether it's lineups, matchups, we have different starters. So we don't really have the exact same situation as Danielle. I can't say there's ever been a time where we started someone, I guess, because we thought they would kind of be a suck if they didn't start, but we have started someone for confidence. That's definitely a thing that we have done, especially earlier in the season. But by the end of the season, it's kind of the kids that need to be on the floor are on the floor.
Confidence, eh? So how do you build it? Let's talk about that. As a player and as a coach, helping a player be confident. So let's start as a player. You know, what are some of the things you do in your preparation or in your day-to-day to build confidence? Because I think that's a growing aspect of your ability to perform, because athletes now, they're working on skills from such a young age. Everybody is getting so much better with, skill development. I think a lot of it really, but some of them don't transfer. Like some of them are very good with skills and workouts, 1-on-0, but it's not transferring to a game. And, and I think some of it is because the confidence isn't quite there. But then you have a game where they break out and all of a sudden now it's like a different player because they're going to the next game coming off a 10 rebound, 6 assists, 20-point game or whatever it may be.
And that's something, again, with Fanshawe, we have more of I don't want to say like a youth style of play, because that's not the case. During the season, though, our coaching style is to try to play as many girls as we can. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to play, especially against the good teams. But there are some weaker teams in our league that we are able to play everyone. And when those games are happening, that's when they build their confidence. That's when they go out there and aren't as nervous, because we have the luxury, I guess, of being able to do that. At the same time, our starters or our better players are cheering our bench on like it is a close game. And like that basket they just hit or like that steal they just stole is the biggest thing that happened. And I think that teammates have a huge responsibility in helping each other build confidence, because the coaches can't be patting you on the back all the time. That's not our role. Yeah, once in a while, but we're there to teach and to make you better. The teammates are the ones that should be having your back all the time. If you make a mistake, you're like, that's all right, let's go, next play. I think we try to make that a focus, and I think a lot of players, if you do that for your teammates, you'll see it come back, and that's what builds confidence, when you have your teammates have your back and vice versa. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is kind of a cool story. We'll move on to the next one. This is a cool story. So, Fanshawe women's basketball program, led by your dad, started coaching in '87. Took a break when you guys were born. Now the staff includes you three, Auntie T, and Uncle Bill. Talk a little bit about that. You guys have led that team to back-to-back OCAA titles, which is incredible. Your dad's won Coach of the Year. He won Coach of the Year back in the '80s, early '90s. Talk a little bit about how it's kind of come full circle, and you guys are now leading a college program to such success that you guys are doing. And how did your playing careers kind of prepare you for this?
Nicole, you've been around the longest.
That's a big question. A run-on sentence, actually. Just joking. We'll start with, I guess, my parents started coaching when they graduated back in '87, or a couple years after they graduated, just to fill in a role that got left behind. And my dad was, I don't know, 24 when he started, a very young coach. And him and my mom were able to find a groove. They had to recruit. Okay, they had 7 kids. They had to recruit in the hallways for their players. Like, it wasn't like it is now where kids are playing competitive and playing jewel prep and all that. They walked down the hallways of Fanshawe College and were like, hey, you want to play some basketball? You want to come out? They recruited from other teams, like,
Little
oh, you play soccer? Maybe you can be good at basketball too. Come on out and let's see. And they won 4 championships with those girls. Like, whatever they were doing it right. That's before film. Like, they just did fitness and had some good strategy behind my dad's defenses, and were able to pull off some big wins. So that's why they won Coach of the Year. Actually, I think it was 3 times, and my dad won National Coach of the Year.
I think it was 4. Actually,
might have been. I can't keep track.
Check.
But they have the work ethic needed to be successful coaches, because work ethic doesn't stop when you're done high school or when you're done college. Like, that continues on to your careers, and that's very dominant in what they do as coaches. So when I graduated and there was a vacancy for the women's basketball coach, my dad said, okay, I'll do it for a year just to help Fanshawe out, because they didn't have a coach. And we ended up
7 years later.
We just love it so much. 7 years later.
7 years later.
As far as how our playing careers brought some different perspectives as coaches, as young coaches for Danielle and I. For me, my kind of focus was originally to learn from my dad and from my mom, because they are extremely talented each in their own ways, and you can learn a lot from them. But also, I was able to, coming fresh out of playing, I was able to read the girls a bit better, as far as body language or recognizing engagement, or even sometimes I could tell when they're not understanding something, and just being able to rephrase or go back to the drawing board as coaches and saying, hey, listen, this person's not engaged, like, what's going on? Or this person's not cheering on their teammates, like, let's figure that out. Or this person doesn't understand our zone offense, let's sit down with them. So that's kind of what I brought to the table at the start. Now we all kind of just pitch in everywhere. Danielle and I kind of handle the defense, and my dad offense, and my mom the fitness and motivation part of that. Danielle, anything I missed?
Yeah, I want to touch on the fact that even though the game has evolved with film and everything like that, dad's style of play and mom's focus on fitness has not changed. You know, we still focus on fundamentals. We still focus on building habits and game awareness, whether it be offense or defense. And obviously, fitness, agility, conditioning, and all that stuff is crucial for the game of basketball. So that stuff was there back in '87, and it's still consistent to this day. So I think that's a little bit of a unique situation. Yes, we've adapted to the style of play, but the fundamentals and the habits remain the same. And I think that's kind of a unique situation for us, and it's really cool to see how it still applies, even though we've evolved so much. As far as me coming into coaching from being a player, it was a challenge for me my first couple of years, because I still had that player mindset, and my expectations were super high, and it was frustrating because I couldn't play. So a lot of my delivery was what might have been intimidating, just because I felt like I was still that athlete, and I was still part of the team and working, having the role of being someone who made that impact on the floor. And I had to adjust my mentality into that of being a teacher. which was fitting to my career choice. So I had to take all of my playing experience and my emotion and filter that and use it to benefit the girls. And I think I have a lot to offer in skill development. When I was in Saginaw, I played both a guard and a forward, 5'8" forward. So I have a little bit to offer in different ways. And similar to what Nicole said, just kind of being that liaison from the girls up to the head coach of my dad, and filtering, what we see and making it understandable for my dad, and then filtering what my dad sees and making it understandable for the girls. So similar to Nicole in that situation.
And he will always say, you need to have a female on the bench. You need to have a female. Any team that doesn't have a female on the bench, like, it needs to happen. They understand emotions way better. I don't see any of that. He'll admit it. He'll be the first one. And he has gotten a lot better. But he doesn't see all the emotion that we do that is necessary if you want to bring out the best in all the girls. Everyone reacts different to every scenario. And if we're able to manage that and kind of improve that throughout the season, then come provincial championships, like, we're ready to go. Everyone is top of their game, both mentally and physically. And I think that our family, between the four of us that are on the coaching staff, plus Katelyn comes in and helps out before big games or big events, to, like, defend players for us or be that best player on the other team. I think the girls feel comfortable because of our family environment as coaches, that they're part of our family. They should know that, and the girls that have gone through our program for 4 or 5 years, like, they know that they're part of our family, because we have my mom making sure they're okay off the court. Dad, although he can be mean sometimes, he has a big heart. And then between Danielle and I, making sure that everything's good with team cohesion. It's a big part, especially when you're playing for as long as we play, right? The high school season is 2 months. I mean, I guess it's different with prep now, but you're playing with these girls for 8-9 months of the year. You got to get along with them somehow. So it's important to feel like a family, and I think that's what our values are.
I think you guys, it seems like you're almost built like a Fortune 500 company. You have all of the, like, you have your C-suite.
Getting paid like one too.
Yeah. Everybody's got their roles, and I know that we're probably going to get at least 2 more viewers and on this talk show with all the nice things you're saying about your parents. So we can count those in. And it'd be interesting to see how they went around recruiting when they needed more than 5 players. Did they just, like, throw books at people and see if they could catch it and say, hey, come on over to the court?
We'll have to get them on to talk about that. We have to get them on the show to talk about that, because I'm interested in that, just that part of it.
Well, you know what, too, Joe? Like, another thing is, to define a good coach, you got to see how they coach with a bad team. Mm-hmm. And that really determines whether they're a good coach or not, because, anybody can win with a really good roster on paper, but now taking that team from, on paper not as good anymore, how do you do with them? That's a really true testament of how good of a coach you are. And I think Auntie Uncle Bill and the 3 of you have done a good job in doing that. So, yeah. Okay, so I guess parents' involvement in their kids' journey through their athletic careers. How much involvement did your parents have in your careers coming through playing the sport, both from mental and from actually being there and helping support you with driving to all these tournaments and kind of always saying, hey, I'm there for you, I'm ready to go. But then also touch on being able to mentally answering questions for you that were asked from somebody, from a coach, for example. Like we have people where we'll be talking with the kid and we're trying to engage them, and have them ask questions, because we think there's value in them in pauses and having them answer questions to kind of think through the process. But then sometimes their parents jump in and answer it for them. Some are good because they're guiding them through it, but some are kind of cutting them off before they can answer. So talk to us about the involvement that parents, I know you're all smiling because you have so much to talk about and I keep rambling on, but I'm going to stop. You know where I'm going with this. Go.
Kate, do you want to start?
No, you can go ahead.
So growing up, our parents were super supportive, like you mentioned, driving us here and there. I mean, they built a basketball court in our backyard, for crying out loud. So super supportive of our goals and our dreams. One thing that Katelyn can probably touch on a little bit later too is that I never felt pressured to pursue one sport over the other. Played soccer first growing up, played hockey for a little bit, did a little bit of gymnastics here and there, and then found basketball. So I never felt the pressure from them to pursue one sport or the other. They both played college basketball, but they also were multi-sport athletes in high school too. So they understood the value of all different sports, and they were supportive that way. In my grade 12 year, maybe my grade 13 year, there was a time where I kind of fell out of love with basketball for a little bit. And, my mom sat me down and she said, is this what you want to do? Do you want to stop playing basketball? And just kind of left that up to me to decide. Ended up obviously pursuing and going through with basketball, but she would have been okay with me stepping down if that's what I had chosen to do. So I never felt pressure, but I always felt the support. So I knew whatever I wanted to do, they would be behind me and supporting me, but I didn't feel like they were pushing me to go in one direction or over the other.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Along with that, they also, growing up, I was also a multi-athlete sport, did some karate, some power tumbling, and along with soccer and basketball. But one thing that stuck with me growing up, my mom always said, you finish what you start. So while they were supportive in whatever direction we wanted to take, if you committed to something, you better finish that season or that year or that week as far as karate went. But so they really held you accountable for the commitments you make. Kind of along those lines too, and especially with them being coaches, they didn't let things off easy. And if you ever went up to them and said, oh, I'm hurt, or oh, I'm not playing a lot. Okay, well, you better fix it. You either got to rest, or you got to push through, or you got to work harder. You got to talk to your coach. So, and I know obviously every situation's different with parents, but as much support as they gave us, they also were hard on us and made sure that we got the most out of every situation and made us better because of it.
Yeah, I think that if any parents are listening, the best advice as a coach I could give is to make your kid ready for the next level. They need to be ready to be held accountable. They need to be ready to hear some tough stuff sometimes. They need to be ready to take responsibility for what they want in life. So if it's always the parents doing it, they get to college and all of a sudden they break down because they don't have their parent going to their coach for them when they want to know why they're not playing. So as a parent, it's okay to say, if the kid's upset, go talk to the coach. Ask, hey coach, why am I not playing? Or maybe not that. Maybe what can I do to get better? Or is there any way you can help me get better? Go ahead, Kate. And
along with that, you better be ready for the answer if you're going to ask.
I was getting to that, but yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. She was ready to go.
Yeah, that's all right. That's perfectly exactly what I was going to say. If they hear some tough news from their coach, there's a fine line between being supportive and enabling that behavior. So if they hear that they're not as good of a ball handler as the point guard starting before them, instead of saying, no, that's wrong, that your coach doesn't know what they're talking about, maybe say, well, let's fix that, or what are the steps we can do to fix that, right? Instead of just making excuses or running to the coach, being upset at the coach for trying to challenge the player.
Yeah, that's super important for young athletes to hear, for sure. I mean, we probably all went through a point in our careers where we heard things that we didn't want to hear, and it happened a lot. And I know it happened a lot to me. And I don't think I handled it the best in certain situations. And for now that I'm working with so many young athletes, I want to make that perfectly clear that you're going to hear so many things that you do not want to hear, even from me, even from Mike, and from you guys, right? And the way you handle that means the world, because there's situations where I didn't handle it well. And I'm looking back and I'm like, I could have handled that better, and that I could have got this out of that if I handled it better. And if kids can understand that, truly understand that, and take steps in the right direction to get better in that area, I think it'll definitely help them moving forward. So moving on a little bit here, if you each chose, this is kind of a loaded question, if you each chose kind of one point in your life that you learned the biggest lesson, basketball or outside of basketball, coaching, whatever, what would it be? One of you can start. I don't care.
Okay. Mine was easy. As soon as I read your prepared question, this is the only thing that came to mind. I'm sure if I thought about it, there would be others. But after I was done basketball as a player at university, I had almost a regret. I don't want to say a regret because I had a great experience, but I was sad to see it be done because I felt like I had more to give. So going into my senior year, I worked super hard over the summer, worked on my ball handling, got in the gym, got shots up, and I felt super confident going into my senior year. We went to the NCAA tournament, had a great final year, but then it was done. So after that, I kept thinking about my first 3 years. I could have spent more time in the gym. I could have been more mentally present at practices. I could have just, brushed off some of the mistakes that were weighting me down and just carried on and enjoyed it a little bit more. So that's something that I tried to relay to the players that I coach now, but it's a lot easier said than done, and I know that. But just if I were to give the advice, don't take anything for granted. Enjoy the life that you have in front of you. I know it sounds cliche, but 4 years went by so fast, and I regret waiting until the summer before my senior year before really putting in the work and really committing to being a better player, because who knows what kind of success I could have had in my other 3 years leading up to the final season that I had and how successful it was. I think maybe if I would have been working that hard, maybe I would have had 2 NCAA tournament appearances. But just, again, like I said, not taking anything for granted and working as hard as you can.
Mine is actually very similar to Danielle's. So as we kind of touched on, me and Danielle grew up played together literally our entire lives. So throughout Ramblers, there are a couple years here and there when we didn't play together throughout high school, and then again at university until my last year when Danielle had graduated already and I had 1 more year left. Danielle has always been a leader, vocal leader. You always hear her voice. She's very smart as far as game IQ, so she would know what to say to players you should be here, you should be there. Anyways, very, very vocal. And I find I took the back seat to that a lot. I kind of was like, okay, Danielle's got this. I don't have to worry about what everyone else is doing. And then when she was gone, I was kind of like, oh crap, now I have to lead. So I had this discussion with my coach And she said, I know it sucks that your sister's gone, but this is going to be your best year yet because you are going to grow so much. And I loved playing with Danielle, not saying that I regret playing with her my whole life, but that senior year when she was gone and I had to learn how to lead and be led differently, like be held accountable, it really changed my game. And again, like Danielle said, it makes you wonder if you would have done it earlier, how your career would have been different. If I didn't wait until Danielle was gone to be that leader for my teammates, like what could have happened. So I think that's mine.
I think that's a good point. I think that happens a lot, right? Where you get into a situation where it's like, okay, I don't need to worry about that specific job because I know she has it or he has it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know what? No, go surround yourself by that and learn how they got to that point so that you can gain those skills from that person too. And you can constantly share skills because you both complement each other well, right? Like Joe and I, we complement each other well. He has a skill set that's much different than my skill set. And I think blending those together, like obviously you have your roles, but blending those together and being able to teach each other those skills are going to help each of you grow individually. So yeah, that's a good, that's interesting.
And I think it was a great opportunity I was out of my comfort zone because for so long I had this leader there for me, and now it's my turn and I had to do things that I wasn't comfortable with. I had to have conversations. I had to be working harder than I ever have before. And it's super important in order to grow. So, yeah.
Nothing exact happened to teach me the lessons that I've learned. So I had ... for this question.
No worries. So last question here before we sign off, and we can talk all day about this stuff. We might even have to have a volume 2 with the three of you, but let's jump into it. 30 to 45 seconds each. Biggest piece of advice for a young athlete?
I'll start. So my biggest advice to all the young athletes out there is to make the most of your experience. So when you make your choice, whatever that choice may be, live it. I know these days everyone's on social media seeing what other people are doing. Be present in your practices, in your team parties, in your team gatherings, in your school environment, whether it's with your classmates or the athletic department. Be there and enjoy the moments in front of you instead of worrying about documenting and showing everyone at other schools that you're having a better time than them. Actually enjoy it, and you'll be way happier than if you're concerned about what everyone's posting on social media. I promise you that. And I know it's hard to hear, but that would be my advice. Don't spend your life on your phone. Actually try to enjoy your experience at post-secondary.
Love it.
Amazing.
I'm going to quote a man that we all know and love, in that you only get out of it what you put into it. So if you want results, you've got to put in the work. Yeah. That's it.
Amazing.
Sweet.
Here's the point. Yeah.
Okay, I think mine would be communicate. Whether it's with your teammates, with your coaches, with your parents. Especially these days, it's super important to understand where you're at in life. And if you're having a problem with something, whether it's basketball related or something that's going on in your life, there are always tools, there are always people there to help you. And if you find that there aren't, then you are around the wrong people. So use what you have. If you have a problem, ask questions, because I promise you, you either aren't the only one or someone is there to help you out.
Yeah, those are 3 amazing points, and a lot of young athletes that are listening to this can really take a lot from what you guys just said. And yeah, we really appreciate you coming on, and this has been amazing. So yeah, like Mike said, maybe we have to do a volume 2 kind of pick up where we left off, or we grab Auntie T and Uncle Bill and we talk about this hallway thing because I'm super intrigued about it, and I might call them tonight and ask them about this, picking people from the lockers and saying, you want to come play basketball tonight? We appreciate you coming on, Mike. You can kind of finish it up there if you want.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you coming on the show. Honestly, it feels like it's Christmas Eve right now, and we're just having a conversation while we're watching NBA games. So this is what it's all about, and sharing ideas, sharing stories, and yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks guys.
Thanks so much.